Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how to automate tasks in Linux. Now Linux has a feature called Cronjob that allows us to automatically run commands at predefined times and intervals. So let's say you wanted to perform a backup every day at 2 a.m. on a Sunday. Do you want to log in at 2 a.m. on a Sunday and run that backup? No. Instead, we can create a cron job to perform that task. This cron job will be instructed to run at 2:30 a.m. and it will run the backup command. So just like everything else in Linux, our cron jobs are stored in a text file called crontab. To view the current cron jobs and to view the crontab file, just run the command crontab -l. So this is going to list the contents of the file, and we can see what cron jobs we have. Now, if you remember in my previous video, I explained that anytime there's a pound sign, that means it's commented out. So this whole file is just full of comments, which means that we don't actually have any cron jobs configured. And to actually configure a cron job, all we have to do is crontab -e. So this will open up the crontab file in one of our text editors. The first time you run crontab -e, it will prompt you to select the default editor for that file. So you can select VI, you can select Nano, doesn't really matter, just pick whichever one you're more comfortable with. And then every other time you want to access crontab, it'll remember the settings and open it up in your preferred editor. Now before we actually run this command, I want to go over the basics on how to format a specific cron job. So we have this image here that depicts how to actually configure a cron job. And there's two different sections to a cron job. There's the first section here where you see here with all the asterisks. So this basically tells us when it's going to run. So this is where we would configure to tell it to perform an operation, every other day or every day at midnight or Sunday at 2:30 a.m. So this just tells us when we want to run the command. Then the second section is the command itself. So here we tell it what we want to do. So if we want to run a backup, we would just run the tar command here. Or if we have a bash or Python script someplace that performs a set of tasks, we can actually tell it to run that script so we could actually run multiple commands at once. Now, I want to explain what each one of these columns means. So as I stated, this whole section represents when it's going to run. So the first column is the minutes column. So this can be any number from 0 to 59, representing the different minutes or different combination of minutes it can be. The second column is the hour, so it goes from 0 to 23. Then the next column represents the day of the month, and this can be anywhere from 1 through 31. And this represents, the next column represents the actual month of the year. So we have 1 through 12, 1 representing January and 12 representing December, and the last section represents the day of the week. So a 0 here would mean Sunday, a 1 would mean Monday, a 2 would be Tuesday, and then Saturday would be 6. And also, just a little quirk, Sunday can also be represented by a 7. So Sunday can be 0 or 7. So the example I gave earlier was, let's say we want to run a backup at 2:30 a.m. on a Sunday. Let's go step by step to see how we would go about doing that. Okay, so if you look at the minutes column, we know that we wanted to run at 2:30, so at the 30th minute. So the first column, and let me just draw this out here, the first column is going to be a 30. So we got the minutes column. Now look at the hour. So we want to run at 2:30. So the second hour. So we'll just put a 2 here. What day of the month? We don't actually care what day of the month. So we're just going to put an asterisk, which means any. So it can be any day of the month. And then what month do we want of the year? We don't care again. So when we don't care, always just put an asterisk. And then finally, we have the day of the week. So this is important. We wanted to run Sunday. So 0 represents Sunday, so we can just do 0. Okay, so this is going to tell it to run at 2:30 every Sunday. and then we would provide the command that we would want to run. So since we're running a backup, we would just do tar, CZF, blah, right? So that's how we run a backup at 2:30 a.m. using a cron job. Now I want to give you guys a few more examples so that you can become a little more comfortable with cron jobs. So the next example I want to do is, we covered how to do 2:30 on a Sunday. How do we do 2:30 a.m. every single day? Well, let's go step by step. So the first column is the minutes. We know we want it to be on the 30th minute. Then the next column is going to be the hour. We want it to be on the second hour because we want 2:30. Then we want the day of the month, which, once again, we don't care. So we'll just put an asterisk. And then the month, again, we don't actually care about that. So we don't care what month it is, whether it's January, February, or March. And then finally, the day of the week. Now, we don't actually care what day of the week it is. So we just put an asterisk. So this means we're going to run every day at 2:30. And we don't care about any of these other values, which means it's going to tell it to run every single day. All right. So let's go to the next example. Let's say we want to do 10 a.m. on the 1st of every month. Okay, so this one's a little bit trickier. So we're going to start out with the minute. And once again, remember, this is 10 a.m., which means for the minutes, we want it to be on the 0th minute, which means we're going to put a 0 on the minutes column. Then we want it at 10 a.m., which means we're going to have a 10 on the hour column. And we want to do it on the 1st of every month. So 10 a.m., 1st of every month. Remember, the day of the month is the next column, so we just do a 1, which represents the 1st of the month. And what month do we want to run this? Well, remember, we want it to run on every single month, so we're going to put in asterisks. And then the day of the week, we obviously don't know or don't care what the day of the week is. We just want it to be the 1st of every month, so just put another asterisk. So this is 10 a.m. On the 1st of every month. All right? Now, let's do another example. This time, we're going to do November 3rd at 2 a.m. Okay? So we got November 3rd at 2 a.m. And the reason I picked this is because this is actually the upcoming daylight savings time. So if you wanted to run a specific task on daylight savings time, this is how you would do it. So what we want to do is, let's go step by step. So the first column is the minutes, and we want it at 2 a.m., which means at the top of the hour. So the minute is going to be set to 0. Then we want it at 2 a.m., so that's the second hour. So the hour column is going to be 2. Now the day of the month, we want the 3rd, right? We want the 3rd day of November, so we're going to put a 3. And then the month is going to be 11, right? 11 is November is the 11th month of the year. And what day of the week? Well, we don't care about the day of the week in this example, so we're going to put an asterisk. So this represents November 3rd, 2 a.m. in this upcoming year. And I want to show you another way to actually write this. So with cron jobs, we can do the same thing, 0, 2, 3, but then when the month comes, we can actually type in NOV for November. This has to be all capital and then an asterisk. So this is how we could alternatively write this out to perform a cron job, every November 3rd at 2 a.m. All right, guys, in the next example, I want to show you guys how to run a cron job every single minute. So every single minute of every single day, of every single hour, of every single month, I want to run a specific command. To do that, we have to start out with the minutes column as usual. And, in this case, instead of specifying a specific minute, we don't know what minute. We don't care what minute it is, right? It doesn't matter if it's the first minute or the last minute of an hour. It can be any minute. So we're going to do an asterisk. Then we go to the hour section. We don't care what hour it is because it should run every single hour. So we put an asterisk. And then the day of the month, same exact thing. We don't care what day of the month. And then the actual month of the year, once again, we don't care about the actual month. It can be any month. And then the day of the week, we don't care either. So for every minute, To perform a cron job every minute, you just do all asterisks. Now, we showed you how to do this every minute. How do we perform a task every hour? Instead of every minute, we want to do it every hour now. So now we would do, let's say we want to do it at the top of the hour. So right on the hour. So the minute is going to be a 0. It's going to be the 0th minute of the hour. Then we're going to go to the hours column, and we want this to run on every single hour. So that's going to be an asterisk. Then the actual day of the month, it's going to be an asterisk because we don't care. And then the month of the year, we don't care which month. And then the day of the week, we don't care which day. So this is going to be every hour. This will run hourly. Okay, so the next example is let's perform a specific cron job every 5 minutes. To run every 5 minutes, there's a special notation that we have to use. So since we don't know the exact minute that we're going to run, we don't actually put a specific number here in the minutes column. Instead, we do an asterisk, as we usually do. But for every 5 minutes, we would then put the / and then the number of minutes. So we want it to run every 5 minutes, so we put 5. Okay, and then when it comes to the hour column, we don't care what hour it is. We want it to run every 5 minutes. The day of the month, don't care. The month, don't care. And the day of the week, don't care. So this is every 5 minutes. Now, if we want to run this every 15 minutes instead of every 5 minutes, it's pretty simple. We just do the same thing, but we just divide it by 15. Don't actually think of it as division. Just say, every 15 minutes, and then the rest is the same. All right, so that's how we perform a cron job every 15 minutes. If we want to do a task let's say every 3 hours, that's going to follow the same principle as the every 15 minute or every 15 job, but instead of performing the / and then the number on the minutes column, we're going to do it on the hour column. Okay, for the next example, I want to show you guys how to run a cron job every 3 hours. So this is going to be pretty similar to how we run it every 15 minutes, except in this case, the minutes column is going to be 0 because we want to run it on the hour. And then the hour column, we're going to put a star again. And then we're going to do the /, and since we want it every 3 hours, just do 3. And then the day of the month, we don't care. The month of the year, don't care. And the day of the week, we don't care. All right, so this is every 3 hours. If we wanted to do it every 7 hours, then we would just do same thing, but put a / and then a 7. And the rest are all the same. If we want to run a cron job once every other month, we can do that as well. To do that, so let's say we want to run a cron job once every 3 months. So every 3rd month we want to run a cron job. If we can do that, and let's say we want to do it at midnight. All right, we would do, for the minutes column, it's going to be 0. For the hours column, that's going to be a 0 as well. And then for the day of the month, let's say we want to run it on the 1st of the month every 3 months. So it's going to be a 1. Then for the month column, this is where we need to pay attention. We're going to do an asterisk and then a 3. So this is saying every 3 months. And then the actual day of the week, we don't care. So this is going to run at midnight on the 1st of every 3 months. And let's say we knew which 4 months it's going to be. So if we just do this, it's going to start based on, whatever the current month is. But let's say we knew what 4 months we want it to be. We could also do 0, 0, 1, and then we could actually write out the name of the month. So let's say we want January, and then we want April, July, and then October. and then an asterisk at the end for the day of the week. So we could also do it like this. For the next example, let's see how we can perform a cron job every Saturday and Sunday. Okay, so for every Saturday and Sunday means we're doing the day of the week twice, so 2 times. So we want it on, Sunday is 0, and then Saturday is going to be 6. So we want 0 and 6. And to actually do something twice, we can actually just use the comma. So 0, 6 would mean Sunday and Saturday. And you can string as many as you want. So if we did a 1, that would be Sunday, Saturday, and Monday. And you can do this on any of the fields. So if we wanted to do something, let's say if we want to do something on the 0 minute of the hour, as well as the 10th minute and the 20th minute, for the minute section, we can do 0, 10, 20. And then for the hour, if we did asterisks, that would mean for every single hour on the 0 minute, which means the top of the hour, then the 10th minute, and then the 20th minute of the hour, we would run a cron job. So we're using the same exact concept of, using commas and putting multiple entries for the day of the week to get multiple days of the week. So to get a cron job to run every Saturday, Sunday, and we'll say we just want to do it at midnight, we can just do 0 for the minutes, 0 for the hour, then for the day of the month, we don't care. Then the month, we don't care. And then we would do 0, 6. And for the months column, we could also use the name of the months. So we could actually write this out as 0, 0. And then when we get to the month section, we can do, when we get to the day of the week section, we can do Saturday and then Sunday. So we don't want this here. So you just do Sat and Sun. So this is going to run at midnight for Saturday and Sunday. Now I want to show you guys how we can run at multiple intervals inside a specific column. So let's say we wanted to run a cron job every, at the top of the hour. So for every hour, we want to run at the top of the hour, as well as the 10th minute, and then the 20th minute. To do that, what we would do is for the minutes column, we would do 0, and that represents the top of the hour. Then we can put a comma and then put 10 for the 10th minute, and then the 20th minute. So this is saying for, every hour, once we get to the hour section, we'll put an asterisk, and then everything else will be an asterisk technically as well. This is saying that for the top of the hour, as well as the 10th minute and the 20th minute of every single hour, we're going to run a cron job. And so that's how you can combine multiple entries using the comma for a specific column. Now, let's say we wanted to do something similar, but with the day of the week. And let's say we want to perform a task every Saturday or Sunday at midnight. To do that, it's actually pretty simple as well. So we want to run this at midnight, which means a 0 for the minute column, and then 0 for the, we don't want a comma there. 0 for the minute column, and then 0 for the hour. Day of the month, we don't care. Month, we don't care. Day of the week, though, we need to specify Saturday and Sunday. So if you remember, a 0 means Sunday, and then for Saturday, it's a 6. So to perform an action on both of those days, we would do 0, 6. So this means Saturday and Sunday at midnight. And we can also write this out as 0, 0. And then when you get to the day of the week, we can actually just do Saturday, Sunday. So you can also write it in this notation, which is a little easier to read. All right, so that's all the examples I had for you guys. Let's go to the command line and actually put some entries in now, okay? All right, we're back at the command line. And if you remember what I explained before, we started taking a look at how to configure cron jobs. The way to actually modify the cron tab file is with cron tab -e. So go ahead and hit enter, and it's going to take us to our cron tab file. And you can see here we have no cron jobs. And it does provide a quick little example. So this is the format, remember, month, hour, day of the month, the actual month of the year, and then the day of the week. And here's an example that they give you. So this is at 5 a.m. every week. So this is just a quick little example. So let's go ahead and put in an entry. Let's say we want to run a backup every single minute. Okay, so if you remember how to do every single minute, it's pretty easy. It's just all asterisks. And then now we have to provide the command that we want to run. So let's say we want to just take a backup of my home directory. To do that, it's pretty simple. All we have to do is tar czf, and you notice I'm not putting the v option because the v is really just there for humans to read the output, but when we're doing it in an automated fashion, the computer doesn't care. It doesn't need to have a verbose output. Just leave that off if you're using the tar command for a cron job. And then we're going to call the file backup.tar.gz, and then /home/Sanjeev. And then go ahead and save the file and exit. So after we wait a full minute, we should technically see that file get created because it should run every single minute. So if we check the command line now, as it's been a minute, if we do ls, you can see here that it generated the backup file, and it's going to create that same backup file every single minute. Now let's go back and let's say we don't want it every minute. Let's make this 2:30 a.m. on a Sunday. And I showed you guys how to do that already. It's pretty easy. Let's just tweak these values. So this is going to be a 30. This is going to be a 2. Day of the month, we don't care. The month of the year, we don't care. Day of the week, though, we care. So for Sunday, just put in a 0 and then save the changes and then exit out. And now it's going to run at 2:30 every single Sunday. Right, and let's print out the contents of the cron tab file just to verify that it's actually there. So we can see that it's here. Now I do want to show you guys a quick trick when you're starting out. Cron jobs can be a little confusing, and before you actually make a change on like a production server, maybe you want to validate what you've configured to ensure that your specific cron job will run at your desired interval. I recommend you check out this site. It's called crontab.guru. So what this does is you can put in a specific entry and it'll tell you when and how often it's going to run. So let's say we want to try and do every 30 minutes. Okay. So what we would do is we can do star and then star. So this just confirms that if we thought to run a command at every 30 minutes and this is what we think it is, it's going to tell us when it's going to run. But let's say we accidentally put a 1 here or something. And so if you made a mistake or if you think that this is the correct way to do it, it's going to tell you how often it actually runs. So this is a great tool to verify your cron tab entries to ensure that they're actually running in the proper predefined intervals. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about when it comes to cron jobs is that each user has their own cron tab file. So every user can create their own specific cron jobs, and that's local to each user. So if we change users to, let's say, user 1, and I forget the password for this guy. Okay, here we go. So now we're user 1. And if we do a cron tab -L, it says that there's no cron tab for user 1, and that's because this cron job that we created was under the user Sanjeev. So cron jobs are per user. And this brings me to my next point, and that's, if you started playing around with cron jobs, you may have noticed a an issue if you try to run a specific command in your cron job, like this backup. When that command needs sudo or root privileges, it doesn't work. And putting in the sudo word beforehand will not fix that issue, because when you put in the sudo command, it is going to prompt a user to put in a password. But this is automated, so we're not going to actually be on the command line when that runs. So there's a few different ways around this this issue. So if you need to run any command that needs root privileges, what you can do, and this is just one method, there are other methods, but this is the method I use. What you can do instead is actually modify the root user's cron tab file. So instead of putting this cron job here in the Sanjeev user, we can actually put it in the root user's cron tab. So to modify the root user's cron tab, just do sudo cron tab -e. And it's going to ask for the password. So now we're modifying the root user's cron tab and not the specific user that we were actually logged in as. So this will allow us to run any cron jobs that have a command or need to perform a task that requires root privilege. So if we want to install a package, if we want to shut an interface down, if we want to restart a process, we need root privileges for all those tasks. So you need to modify the root cron tab file to make those changes. Okay, and once again, to access the root cron tab file, all we have to do is just put in cron tab -e like we normally do, but put in the word sudo beforehand. So when you put in sudo before the cron tab command, it's going to tell the machine to open up the root user's cron tab file. Alright guys, so that's all I had for this video. Hopefully you guys found it helpful, and definitely make use of cron jobs. They're super helpful and super convenient, and they make your life extraordinarily easy.